very warm welcome to you all from Falkirk Council's Planning Review Committee. First of all, we'll make the introductions. My name is Bailey Buchanan. I'm the convener of Falkirk Council's Planning. I'll go to my right and we'll do the introductions from the members of this committee this morning.
Hi, I'm Councillor Ralph Kelly and I'm Vice Convener of Planning.
Morning, my name's Gordon Forrest. I'm Councillor for Lower Braes in Falkirk.
Bailey Kerr, part of the Planning Committee. Bye.
Thank you. We now go to the officers that are present here today.
Good morning, Douglas Blythe. I'm Legal Advisor to the committee.
Jack Foley, Team Leader, Committee Services.
Jim Miller, Committee Officer.
Stephen McClure, Planning Officer.
I'm Kevin Brown, Planning Officer.
Julie Seidel-Gregory, Planning Officer.
Okay, thank you for the introductions. This meeting has been held in Grangemouth Community Education Unit, 69-71 Abbots Road, Grangemouth, today, Tuesday the 21st of May, starting at 10 a.m. In accordance with Section 43 of the Local Government in Scotland Act 2003, it has been directed that this meeting will be conducted in such a manner as to allow remote attendance by elected members. This meeting will be also live streamed. First part of the business is apologies, and we have apologies this morning from Provost Robert Bissett. That takes us to item 2 on your agenda today. It's declaration of interest, and just for clarity, I will read this out. Members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they have in any item of business at the meeting, identifying the relevant agenda item and the nature of the interest. Have we any declarations of interest at this time? No, none intimated. Fine, thank you. That takes us to item 3 on your agenda, which is the minute of meeting of the Planning Review Committee held on the 18th of April 2024, pages 3 to 6 on your agenda papers. Have we any questions arising from this minute, or can we agree the minute? Thank you. That takes us to item 4, which is the Planning Review Committee procedures. And for this, I'll hand you over to our officer, Douglas Blythe. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Convener. I'll briefly run over the procedures for the Planning Review Committee. These are at start at page 8 of the agenda. Broadly, this is a review of an officer's delegated decision. As is their right under the regulations, applicants are entitled to have a decision reviewed if they're unhappy with the original decision. First job of the committee is to assess whether they have enough information to make a decision, and if not, then they can invoke further procedures, namely further written representations, a site visit or a hearing. After those procedures, again, the committee can reconvene and assess the information before them. As with any planning decision, it has to be taken in accordance with the development plan, unless material considerations suggest otherwise. It is a de novo or a fresh decision when it comes before members, so they can take into account all the papers before them, the prevailing policies, and weigh up those along with any material considerations. In respect of the two substantive, the first two matters today, these have been subject to a site visit already and further written information. And the last two items on the agenda are slightly unusual in that they are form reminded to grant decisions coming back to the committee for further deliberation, but we can cover those in due course, Convener.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Blythe. That takes us to item 5 in your agenda papers this morning. It's an extension to dwelling house at 6 Redbury Avenue, Bowness, for Mr. W. Walk. And our officer will be Stephen McClure, who'll go through the summary. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Convener. Right, just go back through just to remind us all there. So the review relates to the property at 6 Redbear Avenue, Bowness. The property is a terrace dwelling. It's 2 stories with a small front and rear garden area. It's been proposed to erect a single-storey rear extension at this property. In this case, the relevant policies covering such development are in the local development plan, it's policy HC08, residential extensions and alterations, and the national planning framework for its policy 16, quality homes. So Falkirk Council supplementary guidance SG3, residential extensions and alterations is also relevant, especially within this sections 2.4 to 2.8. There is one objection to the proposal. This is the neighbour to the north, whose dwelling sits slightly back from the rear of the property within the application, and it sits slightly lower given the land layout there. The application was fully assessed and refused due to overshadowing and loss of light to the neighbouring dwelling to the north. The applicant has therefore submitted the current review in relation to the refusal. Further to the review coming in there, the additional information provided beyond the original application appears only to be updating the plans to show basically overshadowing details, and the original objector has submitted further comments as well. That's all contained within your documents there. An email has also been submitted from the agent relating to how they've actually calculated the overshadowing at the property. Finally, obviously, a site visit was carried out by members to the property where the rear garden was viewed. There was only one matter raised there that required some further investigation from myself there, and it was just asked if there was any other extensions within the area, within the immediate area similar to this one. As far as I can see, there's nothing on our system within the street or immediate streets there that matches it.
So just to clarify that the council position remains the same. Fine, thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to open it up to members.
Convener, just it's been that long since we went out. I was struggling to think and remember where it was, but I can remember it now. We were around the back. I can remember it. I can remember it now. There's some good photographs there. Yeah. Yeah. I think the objector has got a valid point. However, I think the officers have they've looked at all the salient points that the objector has brought forward, and I think personally they've answered the questions of the objector. But thanks, convener.
Like to come in at this stage. Councillor Forrest, then Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. I think what colleague Councillor Bailey Kerr has said sort of sums it up in my viewpoint too. I think the questions have been answered.
I was just going to say, on the visit, it was actually a sunny day as it happened. I remember that much. And you could see the building extension there would definitely overshadow the neighbour. So, yeah, I concur pretty well with what the other members of the committee has said.
Yeah, I totally agree with everybody. I think that's the importance of having a site visit. It's okay looking in an agenda item and paper, but when you go out, you realise both sides. So I would state quite clearly that I agree with my colleagues, and I would officially like to move that we agree the recommendations, and that's from the council, and that is to refuse this application.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion moved and seconded to refuse the application and agree that the original recommendation with the council. Have we got anybody otherwise minded? No? Okay, thank you for that. I'll give you a minute to put your paperwork away with that much this morning. Okay, thank you for that. That takes us to item 6 on your agenda this morning, which is construction of dwelling house, outbuilding and associated works at land to the east of Dyke Farm, Falkirk, from Miss Annie MacLeod. It's pages 16 to 20 on your initial agenda, but we also have the paperwork there from the initial report. And our officer this morning will be Kevin Brown summarising. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Convener. As you say, this is a detailed application proposing the construction of a single-storey detached dwelling house and outbuilding on existing agricultural land formerly associated with Dyke Farm at Falkirk, just to the north of Slamanan. Detailed drawings are available on pages 741 to 746 of the previous agenda papers. The application was submitted with a series of supporting documents in the form of a design statement, coal mine and risk assessment, and a business plan and housing justification report. The design statements on page 747 of the initial papers, coal mine and risk assessment on page 754, and I understand members have been passed a copy of the housing justification report before today's meeting as well. The officer report handling on the application is on pages 834 to 842 of the original papers, and the decision notice outlining 6 different refusal reasons is detailed on page 843 to 844. These refusal reasons are each addressed in the statement of reasons for review document starting on page 699 of the papers. Members will recall that this application previously appeared at the review committee of the 20th of September last year, and then subsequently a meeting of the review committee on site on the 2nd of October. Members agreed at the meeting of the 20th of September to seek the views of council officers in respect of information contained within the applicant's statement of reasons for review relating to stopping site distances, which had not previously been submitted to officers. This information has now been reviewed by officers, and their response is replicated on page 18 of today's agenda papers, along with further comments from the applicants on page 19 of today's papers. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you for that, Kevin. Open it up to members. There'll be a minute to go through the paperwork, because obviously it's like the Magna Carta, this one. Really care?
Just with regards to, we were sent the supplementary yesterday, the day before, and we received a paper copy today. Does any of the business plan and housing justification report change the officer's views?
The document that you have been circulated was referred to by the, so it was with the case officer at the time of the original application assessment, and is referred to in the report handling. Don't know for what reason, but it wasn't included in the original paperwork for the September review committee. So it was just to correct that and make sure that the members had a copy of it for the deliberations.
Thanks, Kevin. Do you know why it wasn't included? Because it's a pertinent document that gives an insight into why they think justification should be for granting.
Thank you for the question, Bailey Kerr. As the convener has indicated in terms of the size of the papers relating to this application, I can only offer my apologies. It was an administrative error on my part in the compiling of the September agenda, and I'm grateful to Mr. Brown for having highlighted it last week so that we could get that to members with as much notice as possible once the omission was identified.
So the reason why we didn't get it is because forgot.
It was just missed in the compiling of the full set.
Okay, yeah. I'm not blaming anybody here. I'm just, it's a document that's could have significance in the deliberation. Thank you, Jack.
Any other member like to come in at this stage?
If I can come back in again.
Yes,
again,
indeed,
if you don't
Bailey
mind.
Kerr.
Having known the area very well, been brought up in the area, where very well, where I was born, the National Plan Framework guidance allows for certain development in the countryside with regards to businesses. This is exactly what they intend to do. Is that correct, Kevin? Set up a business and a house to help with that business.
Yeah, so the proposals you can see from the agricultural document that you've got there, split across a variety of land uses in terms of rearing sheep and so on, and then the second main element to that is a bed and breakfast proposal adjoining that as part of the dwelling house that's proposed on the site.
With regards to anybody for roads, or did you answer that question? Because there was, when we done the site visit, there was a discussion and some people were asking, or I don't know if they were concerned, but they were asking about the visibility display for the entrance to the site.
Yeah, so at the time of the initial meetings and the site visit, the documents that had been submitted by the appellants included additional information in relation to assessment of stopping distances, which hadn't previously been before the case officer at the time of the original assessment of the application.
Yeah.
So it was appropriate at that stage to ask for further submissions in respect of that, and that's what you've got in today's submissions on today's agenda papers. The first being an email from Callum Wilson of the Roads Unit, and that is essentially giving consideration to that additional documentation that was provided in the original agenda papers, and giving a brief assessment there of what the visibility displays require to be at the site, and you can see in that's on page 18, sorry, of today's agenda papers, and you'll see at the last sentence of that email essentially confirms that there's a 120 metre wide distance required to meet the safe access requirements. That is then, following on from that, the next document in today's papers on page 19 is the appellant's response to that information. And you can see there it's quite technical in its nature. It carries out an assessment of visibility requirements, essentially.
I read that. That's why I'm asking you, because you're the
so the outcome from that, you can see on page 20. Their conclusions are that they feel they are confident that we can propose a site with 120 metre splay in both directions. What I would perhaps draw your attention to is in page 731 of the original agenda papers. Second to get to there. Page 731. This is part of the submissions that we were talking about that weren't before the original case officer.
Yeah.
So that is a drawing which shows the site layout, but you'll also see on there the visibility displays marked up onto the plan. One in the what would be the westerly direction to the bottom of the page is a 120 metre visibility display shown as being achievable, and in the other direction is shown as 100 metres visibility display being achievable in that direction. So my reading of the documents is that there's a bit of a disconnect between that plan and the conclusions of within the appellant submissions before members today in terms of being able to achieve 120 metres in both directions. I suppose it's for members to decide whether or not they feel they need additional guidance on that matter, or whether or not they are content with the 100 metres that are shown on the drawings here before us as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. As I said at the very start, I know the area very well. That is, as you're looking on page 731 in the original documents, if you're looking at the bottom of the page, 120, that's towards the farm. You'll get more than 120 that way. And I think I mentioned it at the last, an application nearby. It's not the M25 we're dealing with. And I understand the concerns, it's 120 metres. But I'm content that 100 metres one way and 120 the other way can be a reasonable amount for the visibility display. We're always trying to bring investment into the countryside. We're always trying to encourage people to invest in the local area. So convener, I'm quite happy to grant this application. I think that the concerns of some members when we went on site regarding the visibility display towards the east can be justified by the class of the road. And if you let me go into have a look at National Plan Framework 4 to see exactly the policy that I would use to recommend it. And it's, if anybody else would like to come in in between, convener.
I'm quite happy just to keep with you, Bailey Kerr. You take your time and get the proper justification, because as we all know, that when you're taking decisions and LRB, then the decisions have got to be robust in terms of policy, etc. So we're with you now.
Policy 17, National Plan Framework 4, rural homes, the policy principles, and I apologise for reading out, but you never know how the policy in front of me. Policy intent is to encourage, promote and facilitate the delivery of more high quality, affordable and sustainable rural homes in the right locations. Policy outcomes: improve choices of homes across tenures, so that identifies local needs of people and communities in rural islands. In the policy here it's number 5, is demonstrated to be necessary to support a sustainable management of a viable rural business or growth, and there is an essential need for a worker including that's into the farm or to live permanently at a near or place of work. And number 6 is a single home for a suitable for subdivision existing residential home. The scale of which is keeping with the character. I think if policy 17, I think, meets the rural home, and it's about the
And Councillor Kelly.
Can you tell me, Kevin or Steve, how many rooms are for let in there for the bed and breakfast part of it? Do you know?
I don't have that information off the top of my head, I'm afraid. Most likely within the papers here.
Can I just jump in?
Sorry,
My understanding was it was just one room or
just one room, so there's not going to be 6 cars in and out that yard. Thanks a lot, that's all.
Thanks. I just for Councillor Kelly, plus they're only looking in the first year to have a 20% occupancy rate, rising to 50%. So it's not even at best, it's only half the time. I've got to once again, I've got to agree with Councillor Kerr. And can I say that when he talks about the business, I'm very impressed with what I read here. It has been well thought out. And it looks, I've seen many business plans and have yet to see one quite as good as this. Thank you.
Are you formally seconding Bailey Kerr?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Bailey Kerr, sorry.
Okay. Councillor Kelly, come back to yourself. How do you feel about the situation?
Quite happy to agree with the proposal seconded.
And I'm the same, so it's unanimous, but we'll just go to Mr. Blythe now just to tidy up, as we've said originally. When you're taking a decision, taking any decision, but especially with our local review body, then you've got to be robust in your decision making. So I'll let you get back in relation to the policies.
Thank you, Convener. I'm taking from the discussion that committee is generally content that the proposal complies with policy 17A5 of MPF4, and that it's been demonstrated that the House is necessary to support the sustainable management of rural business. Could I just check that the committee are generally happy with the scale, design and character of the proposed farmhouse?
Yep.
And with reference to the local living policy 15, and that the facilities at Slamanan are within an easy distance of the proposed development site. And finally, that the committee is generally satisfied, having been on site and assessed the additional roads information, that a suitable visibility splay along the lines suggested by the applicant can be achieved and would not offend the parameters of road safety. And absolutely. I think there was also mention of the economic regeneration opportunities as well. And as Bailey Kerr rightly says, the delegation of any conditions would be passed to the Director of Police Services.
Yep. Okay, you happy with that? Mover and seconder? Oh, okay, thank you. What we'll do now is we'll take a wee 5-minute comfort break. Okay, members, we'll reconvene when Jack gives us a thumbs up. Okay. Okay, we'll reconvene the meeting this morning. That takes us to item 7 on your agenda, which is erection of dwelling house on land to the east of Brayfoot Road, Bowness. It's pages 21 to 32 in your agenda papers, and Kevin Brown is once again our officer summarising the report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Convener. As you say, this application relates to a planning permission in principle application for the erection of a dwelling house at land to the east of 39 Brayfoot Road in Bowness. Members will see from today's agenda papers a report from officers summarising the background to this application and making a series of new recommendations. This application was initially refused planning permission in principle under delegated powers back in 29th of March 2019, and it was first considered by the Planning Review Committee on 13th of February 2020. Following a series of continuations for additional submissions relating to open space payments and site photographs, and following delays associated with the pandemic, the Review Committee of 21st of June 2021 determined that they were minded to grant planning permission in principle, subject to compensatory payments of £43,470 towards the loss of open space. The report before today's committee confirms that the appellant has failed to enter into the required legal agreement to secure the compensatory payment. Planning permission has not therefore been issued as it stands. In addition to this, members will be aware that National Planning Framework 4 was adopted on the 13th of February 2023 and now forms part of the Statutory Development Plan. Planning Committee of the 15th of March 2023 agreed that officers should invite further written representations from applicants and the Planning Authority in relation to any outstanding review applications where they relate to delegated decisions issued without reference to National Planning Framework 4. The application before members today is therefore one such application. Further to this, it is noted that owing to the passage of time, the makeup of the review committee has significantly changed since it last met on this item. The officer recommendations as set out on page 22 of today's papers are therefore that the item be continued to allow a further site visit to be undertaken with the new members of the review committee and to allow further written submissions on National Planning Framework 4. The officer recommendation also asks that committee give consideration as to whether or not it's appropriate to accept an amended indicative plan which did not form part of the original officer assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. This is obviously unusual because I think it's the first time that in the local review body that I've been on that there's actually officer's recommendation contained within. And just to sort of maybe expand on that decision, I'll pass this on to our legal officer, Mr. Blythe. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Convener. You're absolutely right. This is a first for the Planning Review Committee. The point I would make, though, is both in respect of this item and the item that follows, these are not recommendations about a particular grant or refusal of the application. These are more to do with the procedure to allow members to have a meaningful reconsideration of the application given the passage of time and given the introduction of MPF 4. So it was felt, given that there are new members who will be looking at this afresh, we felt that bombarding them with the full background papers at this stage would be counterproductive, and it was felt it was more appropriate to summarise the position in a short covering report with the expectation that further procedure would be necessary by way of a site visit and further written submissions.
Thank you for that, Mr. Blythe. You've heard Mr. Blythe in relation to the anybody want to come in at this stage? Councillor Kelly.
Can I just ask why this has went on for so long? Anyone?
Mr. Blythe going to come back in here?
I think I haven't been close to the the negotiations that took place with the applicant post the committee's decision. It's fair to say that almost a year was wiped out with the pandemic during the deliberation, and I do remember that we couldn't even go out on site at one point, so we were asking for photographs to be sent in to try and get us to try and get the information before members. As with any minded to grant decision, the committee made its decision, and that was issued to the applicant, and their choice at that point was whether to accept that and move towards conclusion, or, as seems to be the case, to try and unpick that, as it were, and see if there was some alternative that the committee might be satisfied with. I think that's essentially where we are. There was discussions between the planning authority and the applicant, and NPF4 has come up on the rails. So even if that hadn't been on, if that hadn't been at large, then it would have been open to the committee to reconsider this application and potentially refuse it if the legal agreement couldn't be concluded. Alternatively, they could ask for further information. It just so happens that NPF4 has come up on the rails, and I think all bets are off, really. So I think it was felt that just a reset was appropriate. We'll ask the applicant to comment on the previous decision, NPF4 issues, and then that can be circulated to the planning authority and interested parties. And hopefully when that information comes back, the members will have enough information to make a decision one way or the other.
Well, does that mean it comes back to the review committee or to the full committee?
It'll come back to this committee.
This committee.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that explanation, Douglas. Obliged.
Care.
Thanks, convener. Can I just ask Mr. Blythe what the timescale for this will be? Obviously, we're near the end of May. If we didn't get it back before end of June, we come into recess, so it could be August, September. And I'm just fearful that it's not just this one, it's the next one as well, where they've been first came to review. This one came 4 years ago. Then the other one came 3 years ago. As I keep on saying, this is people's lives we're dealing with, whether they're objectors or applicants. Is there a timescale that there is, Douglas?
There will be timescales set down in the regulations as regards written submissions, and it's usually, I think for this one, we're suggesting a 3-step process whereby the applicant is given an opportunity to submit representations. At that point, those are fed out to interested parties and the planning authority to make submissions, and then after that, the applicant is given a final right of reply. As we sit here today, I have to be honest, I don't think that is going to take place before the recess.
No.
So I think all we can commit to do is get that process kick-started as soon as possible, and try and convene as soon as we can after the recess, and hopefully all the information will be there for members.
Thank you, Douglas.
Okay. Obviously, it's disappointing and a lot of issues, but we are where we are, and I'll move just as Mr. Blythe has said. We move the process on. I'll do that. We agree on the recommendations. Although, as I said initially, this is the first time in local review body that I've been on that will have recommendations from officers. But I'll move the process on by moving that we agree the recommendations contained within the report. Have I got a second, Bill?
Happy to second that.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Just clarify, convener, I think one of the recommendations was whether to accept an amended indicative plan. And I'm taken from the general mood that you would be amenable to seeing that from the applicant so that you can give consideration to that.
Yeah, and I think also as well is that we need a site visit. So I think we can get the site visit in as soon as possible. I think that would benefit everybody. Would members agree to that? Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. That now takes us on to item 8 on your agenda this morning, which is the site to the west of Castlewood, Glen Road, Torwood. It's pages 33 to 52, and our legal service manager, Douglas Blythe, will be giving us the report. Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you, convener. Again, this is similar to the last item in that it's an outstanding minded to grant decision. The distinction here is that the applicant doesn't object to the terms of the proposed section 75. It's just that both sides were unable to get it concluded before MPF4 came into operation in February last year. At least 2 of the members were involved in this original decision, and we have potentially further new members who will have to get up to speed with the background and the terms of the paperwork. Just in terms of the background, the initial review was submitted in August 2021. There was further procedure following that, and a hearing was held in respect of this application in March 2022. That recommended that the committee were minded to grant, and there were several items in the proposed section 75 to do with compensatory tree planting, education contributions, and contributions to the Blue and Green network. There were discussions between the applicant and the planning authority as regards the conditions, etc., but the final decision notice was not issued until 29th August 2022. Again, there were instructions were passed up to the legal team after that, but there was a delay in receiving titles from the applicant's agents. That notwithstanding, it looked like the agreement on the terms had been reached as far as the council was concerned at the end of January last year. But unfortunately, the applicant's agents weren't able to intimate agreement to that until March 2023. Now, I think all members know that MPF4 took effect on the 13th of February, so we were sort of boxed into a corner, and as with many minded to grant decisions that the council had at large, we took external advice to determine the best way of proceeding with those, and that involved a redetermination or a reappraisal of the application in terms of the equivalent policies in MPF4, and to determine whether there was anything significant or material that would necessitate a reappraisal of the application. In respect to this one, that exercise took place, and the updated report on handling is attached to this report, and that does identify that there are areas of incompatibility amongst several of the policies in MPF4, but in particular there's there are new policies introduced, which it's felt are so significant that the matter would need to be reappraised by the committee. It's conceded that it's taken a while to get this back before members, but the external advice we've received does confirm that that's the most transparent course of action. There are the recommendation is therefore to, as with the last item, is to invite the applicant to comment on principally the two policies of major significance, namely Policy 15 and Policy 16, but also any other policies in MPF4 that they feel are relevant to the application. And then once that's received, to invite comments from the Planning Authority and any other parties who have submitted representations during the course of this application, and then to give the applicant a final right of reply. As with the last case, I think the sooner we set that ball rolling, the better, and we can, we can try and get the matter back before members. What I didn't put in the recommendations was that members may want to have another site visit. There are new members dealing with this who won't have been on site. As with the previous item, there's a lot of background paperwork as well that members will need to see, so we can commit to getting that before members so they are as fully informed as they can be when this matter comes back. So the recommendation with that additional one about the site visit, convener, is to redetermine the application and review and to invite further submissions on the impacts of MPF4 with specific reference to policies 15 and 16, but with broader reference to other MPF4 policies deemed relevant. And that again, we undertake a three-step process whereby the applicant makes their submissions, it goes to interested parties, and then the applicant is given a final right of reply. And the third recommendation would be to carry out an unaccompanied site visit. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Mr. Blythe, for summarising that. Obviously, this has been a very long time on the table, and it's been a bit frustrating, not just for the applicant, but it's also been a bit frustrating for Councillor Kerr, as we're the only two that's left from the original review body that granted this application. And also we've heard some of the information coming forward leading to the frustration for the applicant because of the length of time. But we are where we are, and once again I would state quite clearly that I wouldn't say I'm happy, but to move this situation on, I'll agree the recommendations contained within the report with additional site visit. Bailey Kerr.
I'm quite happy to second that, Convener. However, I'm disappointed that it took a year, and I'm not blaming anybody, whether it's the applicant or whether it's the council, but a year to get an agreement signed, I think, is very disappointing. As probably other members of the committee this morning have received emails for objectors, I personally will look at the case afresh and look at the salient points from the officer and waiting the feedback from the applicant regarding MPF4. I will, however, convener, will not be bullied into any decision by anybody, and it'll be a fresh look at this application, and whatever decision the committee take, it'll be on the merits of the information received. Thanks, convener.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Can I ask Douglas, was the original decision to refuse taking under delegated powers, or was it a committee decision?
It was a delegated decision.
Okay, thanks.
Like to say, I don't want to dwell on it, but Bailey Kerr brought up the point about not being intimidated or abused, that once that decision had been, the original decision had been taken over 3 years ago, that the amount of abuse that the members who took the decision, which Bailey Kerr, Councillor McCluckie and myself received, was absolutely shocking. And I'm quite happy that Bailey Kerr had brought that matter up to say that we're here to take decisions. It doesn't, everybody doesn't agree with the decisions you take, but the fact is that we should never be put in a position as we were with that situation. Other than that, have we agreed the recommendation contained within the report?
Great.
With additional site visit.
Just, who's the case officer?
Pardon?
Who's the case officer?
No. Okay, Bill, I think that brings us to the end this morning. I'd just like to thank members of the review body for coming, and also I'd like to thank all the officers for their diligence this morning, including everybody that's here and people that's online. Thank you very much for your contributions, and look forward to seeing you at a later date. Thank you.
Thanks, convener.
Thank you.